On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are discussing Prodigy 119 and 120, Supernova, Parts 1 and 2, the Season 1 finale, the real one, right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
This is the first season? Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on two lifelong friends talking about Star Trek like they do. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
Dave.
Like I do. Yeah. What's up, man?
Man, Prodigy came to an end.
It did.
These last few
first
weeks.
season.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Just the first season. It's not over.
Well, it feels very final. This feels like a very deliberate, first season in the way that it, has has a beginning, middle, and end, and ends with this big epic of this two-parter. I really dug, just the scope of it, I guess. Going all over the Federation, and we get to see them at Federation headquarters and all that stuff. It's just a lot of fun. And also, as we discussed last week, just all those ships coming together was a big moment. But then getting to see them actually fight was just a lot of fun. And then calling in all the other races, that felt very Doctor Who to me. It felt so Doctor Who, which I am here for. Make Star Trek Doctor Who again, I love it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I love they may be many, but we are fast. I love seeing the Protostar whipping in between all that phaser fire. I love seeing the Defiant because they actually did name check it. It was Defiant on the model on the Defiant class.
Oh, wow. Was it?
Yeah. And now I don't know if they were just pulling in old CGI models and missed a couple of bits.
Whatever. That's canon as fuck.
Yeah, they had a Sovereign class ship that was the USS Sovereign, but then one of the Sovereign class ships totally said Enterprise and had the 1701E on the nacelle as they were passing through it.
Wow.
So Enterprise was there as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's canon, man. How cool is that?
I dug it.
I dug a lot. And I mean, you talk about that moment, they are many, but we are fast. I loved how smoothly the crew is working together. And I love how it's believable. We've been seeing them develop this skill set of working together and talking like a Starfleet crew. And Janeway has been training them. It's just so cool to see them in the midst of a firefight with the entirety of Starfleet, Yes. And they're working together in such a smooth and cool way and still trying to do the right thing by everybody, even though it's hard, I just love it.
Yeah, I do too. And I do have one gripe that I can think of, and I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way. I understand that they needed nice character moments. But there are a couple of points where people are dying. Phasers are destroying ships. Ships are destroying each other, and they're just they should be well, we have an idea of how to stop this, but let's have more witty banter on the bridge. Get on stopping this thing, y'all. It's come on.
Yeah. I didn't notice much witty banter slowing it down, but yeah, you're probably right.
There were a couple of bits where I was just okay, so good. You guys have an idea. What are you doing? Stop talking. Stop joking around, man.
Take action. People are dying. Well, at least maybe. We don't really know that people died because, a lot of probably people transporting off their ships and, not to mention...
the people are dying. That shit was Wolf 359, man.
I mean, I agree. There was a lot going on, but there was no... I assume a lot of them were, ejecting, and a lot of people... If the ships were going down, there were probably a lot of people getting off the ships.
Maybe, but if their computer systems are compromised, why would the living construct allow them to eject? They did before in that space station, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. They did. And the living construct doesn't seem to work that well. And and this is like sort of my headcanon for why they were able to get away at all. It's not like the living construct like copied its AI onto the other ships. The way it showed the living construct working was the construct would pull up a ship and tell it what to do, like individually. Like, and it looked like it was only able to do one at a time, which seemed like a very slow way to handle this entire process, And so maybe just the living construct was, with enough time could have done damage, but like just wasn't really gonna be able to do what it wanted to do.
Yeah. And I could have used a little more explanation on that one.
Yeah.
But I don't know, possibly if they had given me more explanation, I might have had a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's often the case with like any sci-fi shows. It's like they leave enough unexplained so that you can headcanon the little bits that don't make sense, in whatever way makes sense with your internal logic of how the show works.
Yeah. I always like, with anything like that, it always reminds me of that scene from Thank You for Smoking, maybe? Is that what it was called? With Aaron Eckhart, where Rob Lowe was like, yeah, we want to have him smoking in the sci-fi movie. He's like, you can't have smoking in space. And he's like, we'll just like throw in a line. It's like, oh, thank God we, fixed the blah, blah, blah. So we can smoke in space.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I love this episode. The first part was like really, really super interesting and good. I love the sword fight. I love that sword fight and Diviner's sacrifice was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
I loved the Vindicator's escape with Dreadnought as a freaking escape pod. That was dope. I know you could do that. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, he's a transformer. And what's funny is like every time I watch this, it just like it auto advances to Transformers on Paramount Plus.
Yes, mine
so
too.
I'm just like, I felt like I was just watching it.
Yeah.
So
I actually don't know why, but I didn't catch that was Dreadnought or like her version of Dreadnought. That caught her and took her away. I realize now that makes total sense, but I just saw the little capsule come in and take her. That makes sense. That's cool.
But yeah, I love that like Diviner basically like stood up for his daughter with his own telekinesis of his way. He's like, this was my weapon. That was awesome.
Yeah, like, and given the way the season ends, it seems like they're going to their separate ways. Gwendala is going away from the crew, not joining the Federation, but if she's out there and her goal is to save her people still, I have a feeling that this this other character that's still out there with her version of Dreadnought.
Yeah, Vindicator.
Yeah, Vindicator. Sorry, I don't remember.
Asencia
Ensign. It makes a lot of sense that like they're going to be going up against each other in some way. Like Gwendala is going to believe that like she can change it some other way, and the Vindicator is going to just try to stop her altogether, probably. So
yeah,
that'll be interesting.
Do you think they will have some sort of like, I don't know, like some sort of thing where they have to like go rescue Gwendala?
Yeah, I do.
And they steal that new Protostar ship.
I don't know about that. I'm really interested to see what Janeway has in mind, and if she has some other ship. She has no. What did she say? She said she has something like, I know I have something special in mind for us.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like Tom Paris has a time ship.
Well, she said bigger. She had bigger plans for us, but did you notice, since we're jumping that far ahead?
Right. Oh, I'm jumping all around on this, man.
Yeah. Did you notice that the shuttlecrafts that were picking the kids up in their escape pod was Voyager A?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
So, I don't know. It might be Voyager A. But it was the Voyager serial number and then A. So
very cool. Very cool.
Was it 746 something? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I can't remember it.
That's really, really cool.
It's not easy like the Enterprise.
A Voyager A, like running around the universe with her as captain and them on the crew. That'd be a lot of fun. And then all we need is a crossover between that and whenever Lower Decks travels through time, and appears and is they need to appear on this show too.
Yeah.
Whenever they appear on Strange New Worlds and to come over here too.
I want all the things. Give me the the CGI animated Lower Decks. I'll do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Like Lower Decks popping up in here in this kind of animation would be amazing. Those tones would be great. Like getting Lower Decks on here, being real, little. It'd be hard because of the Nickelodeon of it all, but being a little crass and being a little silly, or just let them be a little sillier.
I mean, I want to see the Prodigy kids on Lower Decks as well in that art style.
Oh, that'd be great. So good.
Dude, I love the character moments though in both episodes. But Dal kissing Gwen before she could tell him that she was he'll never be in Starfleet, and I loved like his broken reaction, and then like how he like just like picks himself up with the resolve and says like everybody deserves to belong somewhere, and I'm like, dude, he's finally growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's going to make sure the others can get in even if he can't. I totally loved that. That brought a bit of a tear to me eye.
Honestly, it's the Tony Stark arc. It's the you're not the man to lay down, and like he's not the man to like lay down on the wire so someone can crawl over him, because he's the guy who's like constantly like, I don't know, breaking the rules of like society, of course, but also of friendship. He lies to his friends. He does things like to get the thing he wants. He's done that so many times where he's made this sort of bad moral decision, and for him to finally be like, like I'm going to make the decision for my friends, and I'm going to sacrifice whatever I have to sacrifice to help them get what they need.
Yeah,
it's a big moment.
I know you do MCU casting, you love Marvel, but that's not like where that character arc originated from.
Obviously, Dave. It's just the arc of selfishness to sacrifice, and like I think, but yes, I'm the Marvel guy, and Tony Stark is the guy you think of. Well, give me an example from a different universe. That's fine. If that's the one that pops to my mind. You got a different one?
Let me think.
Took you longer than it took me to get Tony Stark. That's all I need to say.
That's true. That's true. Yondu was pretty close to that. It's still Marvel, but
Yondu's a little different because Yondu just kind of was revealed that. Have you seen the holiday special yet?
Yes, I've seen it all. I've seen everything.
Good. Spoiler alert for all that, because we're going to talk about that Yondu for a second. But and this is in Guardians 3. It's not, you don't have to see the holiday special to know this, but it's just revealed that Yondu is just complicated in that he was always sacrificing for Peter. He just had to have the gruff exterior in front of the crew in a way that even Peter couldn't always see through the gruff exterior, and that's a very different thing, But I hear you, yeah.
No. Oh, well, you know what? We can go with Tom Paris. Tom Paris had a similar arc, not to such a grand climax, but
sure.
He went from being a selfish piece of shit to being willing to sacrifice himself for everyone. But I know that character arc has like an actual like designation, in like narrative, but I don't remember it.
Right. I mean, it's just like I said, just like selfishness to sacrifice. It's just the idea of changing a character is always going to be like just going from one extreme to the other, kind of.
Oh, not on this topic at all, but on that topic. But here's something that had me torn. On one hand, it is mighty convenient that the ensign guarding Janeway just happens to have been someone Janeway saved back in the Voyager days.
Right.
And it's also frustrating that Janeway's senior officers wouldn't talk to her for like 2 seconds. Right. And be like, oh yeah, that's okay, that sounds plausible given all the bullshit we deal with out here in the dark, Sure. On the other hand, it's nice to get an update from Voyager or from that Voyager episode, and nice to see how a notable person like Janeway has built a reputation and has garnered loyalty by doing the right thing. So I'm very torn. I'm half and half on that one. I was sort of like, that's bullshit. And then the other half of me, I was like, oh.
Yeah. I feel that tension, but I think that for the most part, it worked for me. It's always the nature of like making the universe too small versus the idea of like using the connected universe. The whole point of a connected universe is like when one character walks in, all the weight of what they went through in the previous series is there, you know? So using those moments is like great and important. So yeah, I definitely don't have a problem with it. I'm more on the side of like, I don't mind the sort of like, I don't mind the universe feeling small as long as it also feels big. No, that sounds stupid. Yeah. As long as they're still expanding the universe. It sucks when it's always going back to the same one character or whatever, or the same four characters, which Star Trek does tend to do. But Star Trek just has such an expansive library of things to call back to. Like, I don't even remember the episode they're referencing here when that ensign was a little girl, but it you know, I got the message, you know. Yeah,
it's just funny to me because whenever I see something like that, I think about like, you know, for years, like in Montgomery, I lived 3 or 4 blocks from 3 different exes and never ran into them. And like never. Like, on Star Trek, people be like running into people all the time, like out in the middle of space. Like, yeah, like how do they do that, man? How do they do that?
Yeah, but, you know, I agree.
I know. Yeah,
they're also mostly in the Federation, though, so it's like,
yeah, no,
well, yeah, like covering lots of parsecs, but you know, whatever.
Parsecs. What did you think about, like, because I loved this. I loved that the living construct shut down the universal translator. It was a really cool callback to the beginning of the series where all of the prisoners of Tars Lamora were like restricted from understanding each other. It was total like, you know, Tower of Babel shit.
Yes.
And I loved that they used Gwen's ability to communicate for good here. Like they even kind of dropped it. Like they hung the lantern on it. I'm gonna use it for good instead of turning people against each other.
Well, and it was really, yeah, it was like, it makes me feel a little chills thinking about her standing there and be like, no, the Federation has one more translator because she's not the Federation yet. Mm-hmm. But she's so committed to the ideals of the Federation just from what she knows so far. And she's like, the Federation has one more translator and I'm it. And I'm going to take these lessons that my father intended to destroy the Federation and I'm going to save it. It's a really, yeah, dude, just nice moment. And yeah, the callback to Tars Lamora and particularly Rock, because I think Rock is the character that I saw that frustration most in, because Rock is the character that like everyone just saw as a monster. You know what I mean? I mean, we all saw Rock as a monster when we first saw Rock. Like, it looks like a big scary
I never
dude.
Stopped. She's creepier when she's giggling all the time about stupid shit. I'm just
I love her so much. Like,
that's not helping.
To me, Rock has been the soul of this show, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, she is the character that like was this monster in the first episode that once you hear her talk, it's like that realization that like communication with another being is so important and being seen for who you are is so important to her. Like that's her story. And when she can't be understood again, she like hits the console really hard, and it's like she's acting almost monstrous again. Yeah. She's like really angry. She talks about she doesn't want to be the security officer. She wants to be the science officer. That's not her thing. And so when she gets so angry that she like basically punches a wall, it's like, oh gosh, that's not who Rock is. But like the frustration of being back in that place is so hard, you know?
Yeah. And I do. I love that, like, she's able to, that Gwen is able to, use her ability to do exactly what the Diviner requested of her, like, almost like foreshadowing what is about to happen, hopefully not Tars Lamora, whatever their stupid planet's called, Solum, something like that. Because she's going to, like, try to invoke peace between the peoples. I really thought that they did a great part 1. Like it ended on a really cool little cliffhanger with like destruction all around. And it really did make me think of Best of Both Worlds, where it's just like there's just so much destruction. Yeah. Such a nightmare scenario, because at no point did I think like, well, people aren't dying. I was like, they're not saying it because it's a kid's show. But look at those phasers tearing through those holes. Look at the ship parts flying about. Like, especially after watching like Star Trek 2009, where you see like the phaser hitting the hull and like holes are opening up and people are getting sucked out into space. That really like solidified a lot of like the dangers of the space battles that we had never really seen in Star Trek before.
Yeah.
That I think about like every time I watch a space battle on Star Trek now, I'm just like, oh shit, somebody just flew out a hole, didn't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was really great. By the way, that episode, Voyager episode, is called Counterpoint.
Okay, I remember that name.
If you want to pop up and look and see if you can find it somewhere, I'm sure Paramount Plus. I'm sure has it.
Well, yeah, that's really cool. And man, one thing we haven't mentioned at all, and it's a huge part of this episode. It's the really sad part of this episode is the Janeway hologram. And her sacrifice.
Well, that was part 2. I've been kind of focused on part 1.
I've been jumping around everywhere. Sorry.
I know you have. You bastard.
I told you I was going to do that when we started. I watched these together, so I don't have any like separation in my mind. So we had some feedback, though. Do you want to get to that part?
Well, we had some from Andre Sparks, and this was about the Mind Walk episode. It said, "Hey, David and Matt and any other personalities." Nice call back to Stu and his accusations. I thought this week's episode of Freaky Friday, Prodigy, was good, but not great. I'm glad they finally got to talk to Janeway, so that's out of the way. They used one of Dal's new powers in a useful way that wasn't too cheesy. I wonder how it will all end for him since he's genetically engineered. Maybe he will go into the future. Janeway helping hologram Janeway was also interesting. I don't recall, was hologram Janeway a thing before Prodigy? No, she wasn't. Keep up the good work. Hope you have a great Christmas and a happy New Year. Can't wait for Picard. I agree. Can't wait for Picard. I hope you had a happy holiday season, Andre. And thank you very much for writing in and sticking with us through all of our horse shit. You know what we're talking about.
It's what we do, man. It's what we do.
We got one from Stu Little about this episode, about part 1. Says, I'm only half wrong so far. Hey guys, well that was a full and dramatic episode. I was amazed to see how much had happened when I was only at the halfway mark. Some thoughts. I know the Protostar is faster, but the fleet were such bad shots during its evasiveness, they somehow didn't even hit each other in the crossfire. Even the Defiant was useless. I didn't notice that, man. I saw like so many pieces of shit flying around.
Well, that's more in the second episode. The first episode, they're mostly just firing at the Protostar.
Right when the lights turned red and it just like started like across that like sovereign hole, I was like, that was like the first thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Maybe.
All right, Stu continues. Really, someone Janeway personally saved in the Delta Quadrant managed to serve on the exact ship she's on? I don't know about that one. I think it would have made more sense if I had seen, or if like she had acted like she didn't like not know her at first. Like if Janeway had been like, yes, I specifically assigned you to this ship because I knew who you were. Like if she was keeping track of these people, that would have made more sense to me.
Maybe. Is this Janeway's ship? Is this her posting?
Yeah, Dauntless?
Yeah, so it's not like just for this mission. This is her ship currently.
Right, Dauntless.
Well, I mean, we've seen, like, in Lower Decks, them wanting to go to a certain ship because there's a commander they respect there. Like, with Riker. He's like, I could go work for Riker, I'm doing it,
Yeah, they request,
postings
they make requests.
Based on... So it absolutely, to me, makes sense that one of the people that she saved in the Delta Quadrant, once they were in the Federation, their culture, they might request... a posting on her ship, and maybe she's fairly new, whatever. There's definitely headcanon that can make that work pretty easily.
Yeah, you could, easily. So that, Stu says, no Starfleet Academy and no girlfriend for Dal. Double rejection. That was a painful scene. That was so cringy. I was like, oh God, oh, that's so tough.
It was painful, but also, I kind of loved it. I loved it. Like,
they've been cringy in a good way.
Yeah, well, you know, they've definitely like had sort of a. There's no reason they've had a will they won't they, but like in the very beginning of the show, they sort of like seem to be like friends, and like you're like, oh, it's a maybe so, maybe there's something there. There's really no reason to think that, I think, in the show, but like you can see why Dahl would or be hopeful about it. And then when he does that, I just like, you know, his reaction of like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's my bad.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something else. It's pretty great.
Stu says, damn it, why can't we get Scorpion-like battle robots in any of the live-action Star Trek stuff? I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't do anything about this. You realize we don't make the show, right? Don't give your request to us. Alex Kurtzman is on Twitter, Stu. Stu says, why you holding your phaser like that in the group pose shot, Dal? It's not a lightsaber. I didn't notice that. He says, okay, so the Diviner isn't personally going to be piloting the Protostar away before it explodes, but that's still in play for the next episode. Nope. Fine speech, Gwen, but you could have saved some time with the Klingon by just saying there is no honor in letting the Federation be destroyed by a virus. Hacking is for Patox. I mean, yeah, she knows the language, but I doubt she knows the cultural, you know.
Yeah, she may not be as adept at the cultural stuff.
Backup will keep arriving and getting destroyed, and there will be no Starfleet left. Actually, logically, no, because not everyone in Starfleet is stationed on a ship, and it would be really dumb of Starfleet to not figure out something was up before they ran out of people and ships to send, since the ships turn to red lighting after they arrive, meaning it's not them being infected by the distress signal, but the proximity to infected other ships. And as the first Kelvinverse movie showed, with the Vulcan mission sending thousands of Starfleet people to die doesn't really seem to slow them down all that much. It would be funny if Lower Decks addressed this by saying California-class starships are so overlooked they don't even get included on the SOS frequency, so they missed out on all of this. I do want that scene now.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You know, I was just joking about them showing up on the show, and I said, like, yeah, once they do time travel for, you know, that other show, for Strange New Worlds, but, like, it's not... this could be concurrent, basically. Like this is like almost the same time period as Lower Decks. Now that I think about it, I didn't even dawn on me. That's pretty neat because this is right after Voyager, and that's, you know, shortly after TNG. So yeah, like they could just show up anytime they wanted to. They could have a crossover with that. They could have had the Cerritos in this battle. How cool would that have been?
That would have been cool. I do wonder if they would ever actually do a crossover, just because of like Prodigy is for kids and Lower Decks is very much not.
Yeah, but so, I feel like a nod to it could be great. Like, you know, they could just show up as two characters. You can just never... You know, two ensigns they have to work with. Like they're about to be on a ship, you know, working in like on the lower decks of Janeway's new ship, you know. So it'd be interesting they just bumped into those crew members on some away mission or something. And you're like, oh, you know, people who know, and the kids don't necessarily get pulled into the evils of Lower Decks.
So,
yeah,
you know, Stu's going to give me shit if I don't say this because he punned it. Still worrisome cliffhanger, which I'm sure will be resolved in an explosive manner. So, there we go. And it did, getting into part 2. I did cry.
Yeah.
When about hologram Janeway.
Yeah.
That was all really rough. I liked the idea, though, that she was very caring for those kids and she loved them in a way. And I like the idea of their evolution coming with having her replaced by the real Janeway, who is now an admiral, a vice admiral. And I did cheat a little bit with that opinion because there have been interviews with the creators and stuff talking about what's coming in season 2.
Right.
And kind of read that and was like, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good thought.
Yeah, I just think of it as such different characters, though. I mean, obviously, same face, same voice, same basic attitudes, but like, I really enjoyed Hologram Janeway as her own character, and just to lose her, to lose this character that like has been as much a part of this crew as anyone, and has been a part of this journey and this adventure and this like growth experience of these characters and their freedom. And like, she's been, very much like their sort of nursemaid through all of this stuff. And now it's like, and yeah, it is interesting because they're not going to have a nursemaid anymore. But they're going to have Janeway, but she's not going to be the same character. She's not going to be this like Hologram Janeway. Her entire existence was to like kind of protect and raise these children. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's her whole job throughout the series, is to protect her crew and then make sure they become better Starfleet officers, and better at being Starfleet, I guess. And so now it's going to be like them in the actual structure. And I wonder if there's going to be some tension there between like, they expect a certain kind of almost coddling from Janeway and like protection. And she's going to be like, no, I'm your superior officer. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you got to do what I say. And like, I may have to order you into battle. I may have to whatever. Like, this is not, I'm not your like protector. I'm your superior officer in this, semi-military organization.
Yeah. And, I think it might be an interesting dynamic if they do it, which based on what I've seen, I think they probably will. We're moving away from Dal being captain. He's not a captain of anything. He's a subordinate. Yeah. You can't tell Janeway, here's my code, do the thing. He has no power. And I dig that. I like that they're shifting over into all of them into subservient roles. Whereas, before they were just kind of doing their own thing and Janeway was trying to guide them. I'm really excited to see what Murph becomes.
Yeah, me too.
I'm still really interested in what Murph is and what he's doing.
I loved when he came down and fought Dreadnought. Like, that was really, really fun.
Yes.
He got taken out, but man, it was a great little fight.
Yeah, and everyone had like a nice time to shine moment, like figuring out how to like Rock using Pog's laser to melt Murph out of the ice, and then they all got freed each other and shit. Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really great. It's very similar. That scene was another scene that a scene of them using ingenuity and using their skill sets together, which, I was talking earlier about the scene where they're all like running this bridge together and it felt very fluid and like they're a crew now. And that was sort of the same moment for a different type of problem solving where like, oh, they're also good at this now, it's real cool.
And it was great in that second episode in the season finale proper. It was great to have Janeway speechifying and, talking to Starfleet about like, they haven't done this, but they've done this and they're great. And Dal is genetically engineered, but he was created from all these species from Starfleet, from the Federation, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm so glad, because I thought they were going to go for it, and I thought they were going to do it where they were like, they are accepted into Starfleet Academy, and then they didn't. Mm-hmm. I was so pleased with that. Yeah. Because I loved the reasoning. They're like, look, you guys did a great job, and we've dropped the charges. Felt very Starfleet Command, like, okay, we'll drop the charges. You're not getting a Starfleet Academy. That's not fair to all the other people who actually did it the right way.
This felt so much like so many Star Trek movies. Yeah. Where, you start on like this season you start on some distant world, some small problem blows up into a big problem for the universe. Some Starfleet crew has to come and save the day, and then that Starfleet crew but they broke all the rules to get there, and then they're brought up on charges. This felt like, original series movies, especially.
Which is one of my favorite things, is that the way they punished Kirk for breaking all the rules and saving Earth was demoting him to captain.
Yeah, that's great.
He's like, okay, clearly this is what you want, so we're demoting you. This is an outrage.
Yeah.
Quiet. We're demoting him. That's his punishment. So yeah, it did feel very much like that, and I loved that. And also, they didn't even bring it up, and I'm glad they didn't. But there's something I really love about Janeway taking on these kids, like taking them under her wing. It feels very much like the Borg children on Voyager, doesn't it?
Ooh, yeah, it does.
It feels like she's kind of been like doing this for a while. Like there's like some sort of little passion there for her.
You know what else it really reminds me of? Standing in front of a half circle council, telling them, no, we will not train them. And then being like, no, then they will be my Padawans.
I don't know what you're talking about. What's a Padawan? I've never seen anything that said Padawan.
Very much the Anakin ending of episode 1, where they say, no, we're not training these guys, or we're not training this boy. And
what is this you said? What is this you're talking about?
all right, Dave, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen the wars.
I will just say my wife is not currently collecting droids action figures. I don't know what you're talking about. I did not win Star Wars trivia against someone who knows it and loves it way more than I do.
I was in the van with I may have told this story before on a cast. I don't know. I was in the van with my band a couple years ago, and it was the beginning of
my band.
Yeah,
My band.
D12 baby. No, my band. We were in the car, and they were talking about The Mandalorian. It was the first episode had just dropped, and they were all talking about how great it was. And they were like, "Oh, did you see it?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm not much of a Star Wars fan though. And then they were like starting to talk about it, and they started talking about when it happens, and they were like, "Yeah, it happens before the original trilogy or something." And that's what they were saying. And I was like, oh, no. It's after the original trilogy. You might have caught the scene at the beginning where they talk about Imperial credits not being worth anything anymore because the Empire just fell, and the Imperial credits aren't worth as much, and now they don't work for that. And they were like, you're not a Star Wars fan? And I was like, no. It was like, but I mean, yes, I did catch one weird line about a currency that clued me into where we were in the universe, but still, I'm not a Star Wars fan.
You're like, no, I'm a Star Trek fan, which means I walked by while someone else was watching it. I heard a stray line and understood the entire plot immediately.
Exactly.
And I said, how quaint. And I moved along.
Exactly.
No actual hatred for Star Wars.
No, of course not. Of course not. No hatred. It's just the fun old rivalry. And I do have my strong opinions about it, but I also have good, smart, competent podcasting friends who disagree with me vehemently about that.
I'm bummed because it seems like the stuff that I would like the most is all coming out now. And like, I just don't have time to watch it. Like, I don't have time to watch like 47 Mandalorian / Boba Fett episodes a year, plus, you know, friggin' Andor. And I mean, all of that stuff looks fantastic. And I've seen the Bill Burr episodes of Mandalorian and love those. Mm-hmm. But then again, I'm the kind of Star Wars fan, quote unquote, who loved The Last Jedi. So
yeah. I like all the stuff that is least enjoyed by most. I really like Last Jedi. I really liked Solo. I that was great.
I never even got to see that one. I never got around to it.
Everybody hated it. And I was like, man, like I get some of the complaints were real, like I'm sure you've heard complaints about this, but like one of the things they do
probably
that people just like hated vehemently, and I agree. I hate it too, but I'm not going to let it make me hate the movie, I guess, because I could see.
What was the complaint?
I'm getting there. I could see if they did this in our universe in Star Trek, I'd be mad. Han Solo walks up to a guy and he's like, "Hi, I'm Han," and he's like, "Who are you with? What's your name?" He's like, "I don't have basically he doesn't have a last name, and he's by himself." Getting on a transport, and so this Imperial guy just gives him the name Solo, Han Solo, like because he's alone, which is like, it's like a weird, like it's self-referential of the thing that is already in his name, a reference to the fact that he's like the loner guy, right? Yeah. Like it's already an on-the-nose reference to the fact that he's a loner in the original like material, and now you're literally making it this like he didn't need to have. It could have just been a space name, Solo. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I never even realized that was supposed to be a reference to him being a loner in the original trilogy because he was always with Chewie. Like they were best buds. Like he wasn't really alone.
Yeah, but Chewie's not treated like a sentient being half the time.
I think not by anyone but Han.
Right.
Understands him, and
I totally agree.
Like,
I totally agree.
Like
I just mean he's not a joiner. I guess is sort of like he doesn't seem like a joiner, and so anyway.
Yeah, I get you now. I just never pieced it together. I was just like, okay.
At least that's how I always imagined it. But either way, like people just hated it, and it's one of those things where like you give a explanation to something that didn't need an explanation just because you're making a prequel. So you're like, oh, let's figure out why he has his last name. And it's like, no one needs to know that. But all that to be said, I enjoy the rest of the movie is a lot of fun. It's a little gangster movie where like, I don't know, you get to see some cool stuff from the past. You get to see the Kessel Run. You get to see like some of the stuff that like you did kind of want to see and know, and they did some cool retconning that like made sense and fit into the universe, and then they tied it together in a way that like I was like, I can't wait to see the next thing from this, and then everyone hated it, so I think they just like abandoned the idea of following up with the plot threads they left dangling.
I don't hate the idea of what you described to me, but one of the issues that, I mean, I'm already a part of the Star Trek fandom and the DC fandom, and I am heavily involved in those, and I hate them. not like all of them, not obviously. Like there are like a handful of really good people. For every like 300 Star Trek fans or DC fans that you encounter, there are like 12 of them that are awesome and you're going to be friends with, or at least get along with. And then the rest of them are just like wildly, like just off their rocker, screaming about things being woke and all sorts of things.
Lots of toxicity and lots of like pedantic asshole behavior in all fandoms. But I would say that
the Star Wars fandom's pretty rough though. It's sure. Like DC level for sure. And I don't deal with that.
I would say it's a little more flipped than what you say. Like you say, it's like 12,
really?
12 good ones. I just think that like, if you're on Twitter, you're just experiencing the worst of the worst.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of fans out there who, and like, this is what I've been.
But those fans, a lot of the good fans aren't on social media.
Exactly. Or at least they're not being loud because they're just enjoying it. Like, something that I've been thinking about is like, what is Stranded Panda's like brand? Well, like, what are we trying to do here? And like, one of the things that I think is important for our shows, and something that I'm trying to like, at least instill in my own shows, is like, we're there to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to critique it. Like, when we don't like something, we're going to say it. But we're not there to hate it. So we're not there. Like, I am here to enjoy a thing I love. And I'm here to talk about enjoying a thing I love. There's so many creators who tear things apart. Like, everything wrong with this episode of this thing I love. And I'm like, why put that energy into that? Like, and so I think... that's why I tend to like the people in our community, because they gravitate toward our shows, because that's what we generally do. It's not as much toxicity, I feel like, but at least about the thing they like. You know, they might have toxicity toward a thing they don't like or whatever, but like most of them are like there because they like the thing they're there to talk about, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I try to do in my podcasting is even if I don't like something, I always like to highlight the stuff I do like first, like get into, if I'm going to say criticism, I'm going to say criticisms and kind of move on. I'm not going to dwell and just, unless it's so egregious, and then we can have a little fun with it and just punch the show for a minute. And I think that stuff's important too. It can be important to tell like an audience why, but like these little bitty nitpicks where you like take a little nit and you pick it and like make it a big wound, you know, like I just need to I don't care about that.
Well, you know, I think there's some room to argue over what's a nit and what's an actual wound to begin with.
We do it every week.
Yeah. Well, I was more or less thinking about like me and Jason on DC on Screen, me and Jason's Wonder Woman 1984 review, where like I'm like, Wonder Woman raped a guy, and Jason was like, it was magic, it wasn't a big deal, and I'm like, no, this affects me personally. Like I don't agree with this at all.
Yeah. Didn't bother me either, but I hear you. I know you had that strong stance on that, and I was like, yeah, I hear you. It didn't bother me, but I just thought, that movie was just bad. How could it be so bad? How could it be so bad after such a great first one with like mostly the same creative team, like coming back and doing their thing? And it's like,
no, it wasn't mostly the same creative team.
It was the same director.
That's the issue,
right?
Director was Patty Jenkins. She did both,
and obviously the same actors, but different writing team probably, I guess.
The first one, and you're not gonna agree with me on this, but I mean, it is what happened. Zack Snyder wrote the story for the first one, right? And Jeff Johns wrote the story for the second one.
Gotcha.
Jeff Johns is the one responsible for a lot of the rewrites and stuff on Justice League, the 2017 Justice League,
right? And
his big thing, he was a protege of Dick Donner. So his big thing is like saving the kid, winking at the camera, like that whole like really cheesy superhero thing, which is weird because he doesn't do that when he writes comics. I don't understand why he does it, but whatever. It was Jeff Johns mostly, I think, as opposed to Snyder. And
yeah. I mean, like, dude, I don't hate Snyder. I like Snyder on a lot of the stuff he does. But I just don't. I like a lot of the movies Snyder has made. Is it Patrick H. Willem or whatever that did that really great Bimbo Artur? Is that the one that isn't our Bimbo Artur? I fully subscribe to that opinion of Zack Snyder, and so I probably do disagree with you in that. I don't really care for most of the stuff Zack Snyder writes. I do really like the stuff Zack Snyder... I like his directing style, not his writing style. Even in the same movie, I'm like, I don't care for this plot at all, but that is a beautiful scene. And I wish they'd like pair him with a really great writer that I would enjoy more.
Well, Dawn of the Dead, James Gunn was the writer.
Right. I know.
And, I think it just like, especially the DC stuff, I mean, like you look at Batman v Superman, one, it was like they cut 30 minutes out that like seriously hindered the way the movie played, but it was written by David S. Goyer, who I do not like.
Yeah. I never like any of his stuff.
Same thing with like Man of Steel. Like I appreciate and like Man of Steel more.
I don't understand how David S. Goyer keeps writing DC movies. He's written so many DC movies, and so many of them are considered like kind of failures in the writing department. And I'm like, why do they keep letting that say? Why don't they keep getting new blood in? And I think they will now that James Gunn's in charge. I really think that's going to be like new blood, new people.
Well, it was from the previous regime. It's like, the Nolan movies. You got to have the guy who did the Nolan movies,
right?
And I wasn't a big fan of the Nolan movies, so
yeah. I mean, like the Nolan movies for me are all about the performances. Like most of the writing's kind of hit or miss, and the directing is beautiful, but like it's so funny. It's so funny to like think about all these directors. I've really been you turned me on to Patrick H. Is it Patrick H. Willem? Is that his name?
I think so.
Am I saying that right? You turned me on to him. He's a YouTube creator, and I've watched a bunch of his essays lately. It's just so interesting to hear, especially people who are more informed about directing and like the visual part of it than I am. Like hearing them break down like what certain directors care about and what others care about. Like for Zack Snyder, he breaks it down as just like so much about iconography. Just like Zack Snyder is so much about like, this is an iconic moment and shot, and I know how to shoot comic booky stuff, because that's what every moment in a comic book is a freeze frame, you know? And it's a freeze frame. It's a beautiful freeze frame. And like in movies, you have to plan for that freeze frame to happen. So like when you've got like a Joss Whedon who likes for his actors to sort of like just like play off each other, a lot of this stuff doesn't look very iconic. Like all those moments in the Avengers movies don't look very iconic. They're very like, they do have a certain few moments that he did well, like obviously the big splash page moment in the Avengers battle is absolutely amazing, and it will be iconic for a long time. But like, that's the exception. That's the momentary exception. You watch this, but even Snyder with that, movie, it
still looks like even with that shot, when you compare it to something like Endgame, it looks like a television director directing a television movie almost. I
100% agree, and the CGI looks bad in it. Like the compositing is bad. As they do that twirl around, like it will forever be, I think, an iconic shot, and because it's the moment that Marvel really pulled off the connected universe. But 10 years later, looking back at 2012, the compositing on that shot looks like absolute shit. Like you can tell everyone's on a different green screen, and it just sucks.
Everybody's on a different green screen. The color grading is bad. It just looks like flat, even lighting from TV.
Yeah.
Like
in 2012, I did not notice that, but now looking at it, I'm like, that looks terrible.
Well, 2012, I was so excited to just see all these characters together. I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was the kid who was like over here jerking off because freaking Bruce Wayne mentioned Metropolis in Batman Forever. Like,
right. Yeah. For sure.
So like, you know, to go from that to Avengers, I was like, holy shit, we've made it.
Jerking off and immediately calling me.
And weeping. You were sitting next to me. No, but we've deviated so far from Star Trek. I apologize.
No, I feel like we got to most of what we. It was Zero got a new body. I don't know if I feel like Zero had a lot of character development in this episode, but Zero got a new body, which was very nice.
I feel like Zero has not had anything to do for the last half of the season, except for make really freaking obvious statements about the plot. And I'm like, what happened to Zero?
They're wasting Zero a bit. Well, part of it is I think they don't know what to do with Zero, because like he can tell what they're thinking, which I almost forget that he can tell what they're thinking because they use it so little.
Yeah, they have become redundant on the series.
Yeah.
Once they got over the fact that Zero almost made Gwen lose everything in her mind, and Zero had that
guilt for a few episodes.
They have not had any real purpose on the show. And I suppose, you know, I'm so callous. I'm like, oh great, Zero's got a new body. They've got new reversed. They've got their Starfleet uniforms like they had on the ship, but they're reversed. So I'm seeing at least 3 different versions of these action figures that they're going to be putting out. And I will buy all of them.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned the Zero. We were talking about Zero, like. Their body, they just got an upgrade by the Borg, and we were talking about how we hoped they'd look a little more Borgish in that episode after that, how it'd be cool if that was more persistent. They just kind of like continued to look like they looked. And now they've got like a brand new robot body. I don't know. It just like, it feels like they're just changing the character a few times in a row.
Yeah. And I'm okay. I love this new body though. This new body looks like it came right out of like a 1970s sci-fi movie. Yeah, like I feel like
I was about to say it looks like a throwback to the motion picture. Like that's what it feels like, the technology and the
exactly.
Okay, I'm rewatching this last scene where they're all looking at the new Protostar ship, like the new Protostar class, I guess. It's really weird. Zero's legs just keep appearing and disappearing. Yeah.
Weird.
It's really stupid. I just noticed it because I've just got it right in the background. While we're talking.
Is it blinking, or is it just like they have a shot of them floating and then they have a shot of them standing?
Exactly, it's that. But it's like they cut between two shots where like Zero is zooming without legs, and then immediately cut to a shot of Zero with legs. Then it cuts to a shot of them standing with Janeway with legs, and then like almost immediately the next shot they don't have legs. I mean, literally, it's like when the camera's in the front of them, they have legs, and when it's behind them, they don't. And it just keeps going back and forth. They haven't even moved. They're just standing in the same place, but every time it goes, and now the camera's in front of them again, and they don't have legs again.
That sounds like they didn't have time. Or like maybe they were toying with like not having legs and then having legs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the idea is that, at least canonically, from what I can tell, they can use legs or they can float. And maybe they go in and out of them or something. But in this scenario, they just keep popping on and off. That's really stupid. Like
now, if they come back to season 2 and the character is actually just doing that constantly while they're just like hanging out, they're like, okay, we get it. You like your legs. You like messing with your legs. Like, yeah, it's basically their version of a fidget cube. Shit, I think I left my fidget cube in a rental.
Oh no, you need that, man. Is that what all that clickety clacking's been when you've been podcasting? I kept meaning to tell you. There's been a lot of clickety clacking lately.
Possibly.
You probably get a silent fidgeter for podcasting. It was a few weeks in a row, and I meant to tell you, and I kept forgetting.
Yeah, gotcha. Duly noted.
I was like, "Are you tapping a pen or something? What's going on over there?"
No, I've got like a fidget cube with little buttons and stuff on it.
Yeah. No, I've seen them. That's cool.
Yeah. I really hope I didn't leave it.
That sucks.
Anyway, I got totally distracted by that.
That's okay. I'm sorry about the fidget. Fidget. That's like your holographic Janeway.
It is.
Mm-hmm. It's been nurturing you all this time.
Yeah. I listened to it. It sounds like the ocean, and then it will say stuff like, "Just do the next step right." And I'm like, "You're right. Just do the next step right. Like the next step correctly.
Yeah.
Don't worry about all the other steps that you won't ever get to."
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Well, anything you feel like we've missed? I guess we got a couple more feedbacks, right?
We do. Stu Little says, "Inconceivable." Hey guys, hope you had a good time over the holidays. I think we mostly did. What do you think?
I had a great time.
Awesome. Stu says they're going to blow up the protostar. Whoa! This is, of course, something Stu prognosticated. I'm the captain of this ship. Well, I guess Gwen's promotion just 5 minutes earlier got rescinded. Well, to be fair, a few episodes before that, they did decide to co-captain Gwen and Dal. There was that conversation. Stu says Hollow Janeway was lying. She was able to copy herself, but she realized that doing that, dying and being replaced by a duplicate, would make her just like Harry Kim, and she didn't want that. Good callback. Stu continues, part of me was wondering before this episode if the protostar was going to turn out to be the true source of the Romulan supernova somehow. Ooh. Yeah, it doesn't really stand up to much scrutiny as an idea because it didn't have the buildup over time that the Romulan one did to allow their evacuations, but it's still an interesting thought, especially if Starfleet had to then somehow cover it up. Because I can live with it. I can live with it.
Good callback.
Absolutely. Was it really necessary for the escape pod to travel all the way to Earth and land in the sea in San Francisco? I kind of feel like it would have been picked up long before it got anywhere near our solar system even. I agree with Stu on that.
No, I totally agree
that.
Was
weird.
Well, the whole thing was that they were supposed to be able to navigate, but like they were out. Well, I just don't know where they were.
Yeah. Well, they were slowly heading towards Earth for a month.
Right. But they did say that the protostar, this is exactly where the construct wanted to be, the heart of Federation space. Mm-hmm. So they didn't tell us how far they were from Earth, but it's possible they were really close to Earth, which maybe that's why. Maybe that makes sense. And if they didn't have any communications or anything, like they just headed toward Earth, okay, sure.
Yeah. No, I need to see all the kids starve to death like Tony Stark.
Yes.
At the beginning of Endgame.
I just been watching Rick and Morty in that scene where he's monologuing at the beginning of the season it's like season 6. He's monologuing the same way. Like he's like, I can't believe we're doing this. Voiceover is so hacky. It's like, and then like he talks about the like how harsh things have been, and then it cuts inside and he's talking to Morty. He's like, Morty, you're not writing this down. I don't have a helmet like Tony Stark. Or no, he's like, I don't have a helmet like that guy in Endgame had. And then he's like, why were you pretending like you didn't know who Tony Stark was? It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. Yeah. Stu continues. Of course, there's a protostar class now. You think they're going to want to spend money on a new title sequence? That's a good point. And what other ship are they going to steal at the beginning of next season when Gwen needs help, but Starfleet politics forbids them from interfering in her pre-first contact world's affairs? Stupid Starfleet is something you're supposed to aspire to be a part of, but once you're in it, if you disagree with any order, it's because they're idiots who can't see the real picture, and you have to go rogue. Come to think of it, why is Gwen allowed to go off and do that? You'd think temporal investigations would maybe have something to say about all of this, since what she wants to do is change the future, which could create a paradox. Also, while she's of that race, she was born off planet, so isn't she violating some first contact adjacent rule by going there?
If she's not the Federation, though, do they have the right to even tell her what to do, I guess is the question.
I know. And look, I had thought about some of I was like, wait a minute, how is she going to do that? But I had noticed earlier in the episode that they kept like talking about the Chakotay thing as coming from an alternate future. So this is like, they were just like, yeah, it's not like a real future. It's just an alternate future where he's trapped.
Right.
I would love it if they did something with temporal investigations, like if that was like the bigger plan Janeway had, like if the other protostar was just like a red herring, like because they know people like us are going to be like, they're going to steal the protostar and go save Gwen. Wait, they just went to another time. So yeah, maybe there's something involving temporal investigation. Yeah. It would be really interesting if they go to an alternate future to find Chakotay. Like maybe they have a time ship. We know canonically.
I said it earlier. Tom Paris been building a time ship.
Dude, that would be fantastic.
We know he has this fascination with the past. He loves like all that stuff. Yeah. What if he's like gotten into temporal investigations now and he's like helped them build the time ship? I think that'd be really rad.
Well, we know, canonically there is a temporal fleet.
Yeah.
From what, the 29th century? What if this is the beginning of that? What if,
yeah.
And we know by Discovery's time, they've outlawed time travel, and like people were going absolutely batshit crazy trying to abuse the Guardian of Forever, so much so that it relocated to another planet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like I think it would be interesting if Janeway and the crew goes into this alternate future, and they find that there's yet another alternate future where Gwendala is older and now like stuck in this alternate future, having gone to try to find Chakotay because she knew he was going to be there eventually.
She's also going there to just save her people.
Yeah. Well, like maybe it broke that wasn't possible. Maybe she couldn't make it happen. Right. So she like hid out during the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, there's also I love the line of like, and your father's there, like, because he did finally like have that moment of redemption when he saved her life, and it's like, okay, well, he's actually done the thing, he's done the redemption thing and saved his life, sacrificed for her, and so like we now don't necessarily hate that character, and now he's like in this like little side future thing,
and we don't have to get rid of John Noble.
Yeah, exactly. Like we get like a young version of him on Solum that's like, she has to go convince her own father, like, to not be on the side of the separatists or whatever, like that sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. But also, as much as I do want to see that, and I think it's going to be good, I sort of don't want the show to get bogged down and only focus on Solem, like I kind of want it to be its own show. It is its own show. That would still be part of the show. I kind of want it to expand beyond just this one story, I guess I should say. Does that make sense?
But, Stu says kind of surprised there was no coda or anything teasing the Vindicator and Dreadnought as being active. Really good finale overall, though, and I'm curious to see what season 15 brings next year. Well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I am very excited for more, and I don't think the story of Solem is over, and
I'm okay with that
because it's so tied to Gwen and her mission and what she's trying to do, because clearly there's a wrong that must be righted. She's got to Sam Beckett that shit, whether it be by actual time travel or just, knowledge of the future.
Right. Yeah.
In a recent video Paramount Plus released, Dan and Kevin Hageman talked about season 2. And they said in season 2, we're going to see a lot more familiar faces. So that might play into your Tom Paris built a time ship thing.
Yeah.
And by contrast, it says we're going to see a lot more familiar faces. Well, in this season, we got Kate Mulgrew as 2 Janeways. We got Robert Beltran as Chakotay. We got Billy Campbell as Okana. We got Ronnie Cox as Jellicoe. And we saw Spock and Odo and who else? Scotty and whoever. Mm-hmm. We got a bunch
Crusher.
of people.
Wasn't she the TNG character that showed up on that?
Yes, it was.
And that was new recording of her, I think.
Yeah, we got a lot of familiar faces. So for them to say we're going to get a lot more familiar faces, man, we're making this universe small as shit, y'all.
Yeah. You said that Sam Beckett thing. And I was in I met a dog this weekend named Beckett, and I was like,
okay.
I was like, hey, is that named after? And she was like, yeah, Samuel Beckett. And I was like, I love that show. And she's like, no, like the playwright or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah,
yeah, you named it after Quantum Leap. Hey, maybe the next walk, dog, will be the walk home. I only talk to that dog in like references to Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
She's like, the playwright.
Dan Hageman was talking to Cinema Blend and said Hologram Janeway was their mentor, and we knew when we pitched it they were going to be losing their mentor, but they're going to be getting a new one, and it's going to give them a new opportunity to grow. They're not going to be coddled like they were in season 1. In order to get into Starfleet, things get tougher. That is a big thing. And Kevin Hageman said Vice Admiral Janeway has other responsibilities compared to Hologram Janeway, who was designed to support their every need and to be there for them. So being on a new ship probably means the kids will be interacting with other people in Starfleet. Probably some of those legacy characters. And let's see, Dan said they've still got more hills to climb to get to that place they want now. That they've tasted it, they want it. Yeah, I don't know how I read that. That was weird. That really is one of the engines of season 2 as warrant officers that allows us to actually get them onto a ship. They're almost like consultants, so to speak. So I would say they're more like cadets in training, but they're not Starfleet Academy. Mm-hmm. Let's see, actor Brett Gray said Dow, now he's going to go from the captain of his own ship to an entire world of people who are also training to be those things and really learning his actual place in the universe. I just hope that Dow can come to terms with letting someone else lead, and if he can truly sacrifice his own ego and become a member of the team. And Kate Mulgrew on the Ready Room post-finale interview said, where tension was suggested in season 1 by virtue of the circumstances, it is realized in season 2. You will be on the edge of your seat for every single character. Hopefully about Zero as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We talked about Dal trying to make like the sacrifice play or whatever for his friends.
Mm-hmm. You mean Tony Starkin?
Yeah, he's doing his Tony Stark thing.
The only other character who's ever done that.
But that's a very different type of humility than the humility it takes to work day by day. You know what I mean? Under someone else and like not be the head of a ship that you're used to, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a very different thing. So that'll be interesting to see him, have to deal with that.
And I hope they do change the opening credit sequence. Like, I don't want to be callous like Stu and be like, they're going to do this because they don't want to spend money on the opening sequence. No. They've changed the opening sequence on Discovery and Picard.
Yeah, and listen,
I think
they've already gotten so many seasons out of this one that it's time in the new season for them to develop a different...
It's been 47 years. It's time. Star Trek Prodigy premiered before the original series.
Oh man! All right. Well, any other feedbacks there? Any things we got?
No more feedback. Nothing else I've got. I don't think. I enjoyed the show. Looking forward to Picard.
Me too, man. Me too. We only got a few weeks till Picard, and we'll be with you guys. Like, I really would love to do that one real quick. Maybe we'll do it the night of or the next morning because I always love to do Picard as soon as possible because I feel like it's the flagship, as it were, of what they're doing. Even though I'm not saying it's the best
I think
one.
Discovery is.
Maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
I think it was meant to be, but I think Strange New Worlds is really like the flagship right now of Star Trek, of new Star Trek.
I think they all have their sort of like, they all have their claims to that title. I mean, like in many ways, I think Prodigy is one of the best. I think that Lower Decks is one of the most accessible for the most people. I think that Strange New Worlds is most what people expect from Star Trek, and I think that Discovery is sort of the launching of this new era. And so there's all the, and then Picard has the legacy cast. So it's like to me though, the legacy cast is what's bringing butts and seats. You know, it's like what most people are going to be watching. Most people are going to be excited for, and so I'm excited to see how that goes with the final season.
I'm curious, people who are only fans of or who came in on Strange New Worlds, like, or anybody, just any fans. Tell me if you agree or disagree with what Matt just said. Like, I'm curious what you think is like what's purpose each series serves for the audience. Yeah, going forward.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what people think about that because I feel like most people listening to this, I may be wrong, but based on our numbers, even like we just see way more numbers for people watching Picard and a few less for people watching Discovery. I think we get more downloads when there's live action material. So I just think that there's that is a skewed view because it's our audience. So yeah, but then again, if we ask the audience, we're also getting a skewed view.
I mean, there's no way you can get around that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's only so many people who want to listen to old guys talk about Star Trek.
Old guys? I'm not yet 40, man.
I mean, people, you know, below 30, I don't think listen to podcasts anymore.
That's not true.
They listen to Twitch streams.
That's definitely not true. I mean, like, yes, there are Twitch streams, there are YouTube, and like, I think to some degree, part of what made podcasts so nice is the download rate. You know what I mean? It's MP3, so you're not watching video, so you can do it anywhere. You can download it wherever you are, and it not use too much of your data. With the internet becoming cheaper and like gigs per month and all that stuff being like less important, I do think people watch video more. I watch video more now when I'm on the move, and even like I'll watch some Twitch streamers that I like listen to their Twitch streams. You know what I mean? Kids wasting my data.
Kids these days they consume media by downloading them to their contact lenses.
That's true.
It just frequency, the frequency reverberating off of the retina is how they consume the media. So I still can't figure out how to upload our podcast to
the contact lenses.
To the lens feed.
But no, I think there's a lot of people out there still listening to podcasts. We get caught. I mean, at least like MCU cast, we get people right in that are like 12 and like have listened to every episode and stuff. And it's like, that's
disturbing.
Yeah, it is. I'm like, we should be more careful with what we say.
Yeah.
We had someone write in the other day that they were listening. We just haven't even edited this episode yet, but it was an episode we recorded last night where a guy was listens to the MCU cast, and then he found out his like 11-year-old daughter also listened to the MCU cast. Like he heard her walking around listening to it, and he's like, what are you listening to? And like they like were cross-generationally listening to our podcast, which is like so nuts.
That is weird.
Isn't that weird?
That is really weird. It's
really crazy. I love that though. All right, well, I guess that's it for us, guys. We'll be back soon. Star Trek Universe. It's 100 years.
Forever and ever. Forever and ever, Star Trek Universe. Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.